people think I'm Canadian or, I'm from Boston or whatever. None of these things are true. I'm an Englishman through and through, and not only an Englishman, I'm a Yorkshireman. And I know there's one person from my hometown here in the audience, and so when people say to me, Yorkshire, well, what is Yorkshire like? I say, well, there's one simple way in which Americans can understand Yorkshire. Yorkshire is the Texas of England. It's the biggest county in England. It's so big it has to be divided up into what used to be called ridings. But then when Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher, thank you very much, on behalf of all my colleagues in the Labour Party, I thank you. This is dangerous territory, isn't it? And without any further ado, I am going to leave this territory and go somewhere safer. She changed the ridings so that we were the part of Yorkshire I grew up in, which was called the West Riding, because it was on the west side of the country. Now became known as West Yorkshire, but those of us loyalists still think of it as a riding rather than just simply designated by its compass to bearing. But beyond that, there is something more than just the geographical nature of the county. I like to think that Yorkshire people are the most distinctive people in the UK. They are outspoken and they are blunt. Blunt often to the point of downright rudeness. But they are an honest people. They say what they mean, and they mean what they say. And they are generous to a fault. And it has always seemed to me that these are the areas where my people and you people, assuming that most of you are from Texas, kind of overlap. When I was growing up in the West Riding in Yorkshire, I spoke with an accent, a strong regional accent, and I had to spend a number of years losing that accent. But more than an accent, I spoke dialect, which means, excuse me, that I use words that are not contemporary English language. I spoke using words that had been used by people in that part of England for generations and probably hundreds of years. For example, when I was a child, I went to a neighbor's house to see if my friend could come out and play, whatever. I would say to my friend, Atalegana. Atalegana. Ata, are you, Lakin, playing, out. Atalegana. My mother's sister every Christmas would recite a poem. This poem was called Drop Tom, and it began like this. I only ever was able to remember the opening lines of it. I was sitting with us last evening. My mother and father were off, because they'd heard that my old Aunt Susanna were laid up in bed with a cough, she's some brass, as my old Aunt Susanna. That's reason she's looked after so. If they've note, well, then note for a bother. There's a sample of my old Uncle Joe. Well, that's how I spoke. Excuse me. But when I decided I was going to be an actor, my acting teacher said to me, "You're going to have to change the way you speak." And so with her, and she has a beautiful speaking voice, I learned to speak what is known as RP, or received pronunciation, or rather the way people used to speak on the BBC. They don't anymore now because, thank goodness, things have relaxed, and now they use people with regional accents like mine on the BBC. But it was, for me, a long journey from that background and that upbringing to being entirely confident with standard English pronunciation. And even today there are words that I struggle with, words with "you" in the middle of it, like worry and curry and hurry. Want to come out, worry, curry and hurry, because that's actually how I would like to say them. Anyway, that's all a preamble, and I think we have, I have reassurance that we have questions set up, right over here and over here too. Okay, eeny, meeny, miny, moe, put the baby on the pole. When it's done, wipe its bum, eeny, meeny, miny, moe. I'm sorry, that was gross, but I haven't actually said that for about 45, 50 years. But now I've got it out of my system and it feels so much better. Yes, sir.
Yes, afternoon, Sir Stewart. I'm Spider Jerusalem, the local journalist you may have heard of. Just wondering, what turned you on to the film Safe House with Kimberly Williams?
What turned me on to the film Safe House with Kimberly Williams was that I thought it one of the best screenplays that I had ever been sent. Well, certainly at that time, the best that I had ever been sent. It was a very challenging and interesting role, and I was very blessed to have a co-star like Kimberly in it, and it was a kind of tricky experience because the play was directed by the man who wrote it, and the man who wrote it also designed it. And it was all done on location in the man who wrote it, designed it, directed it in his house. So it was a little intense at times, you know. But it was a terrific experience, and I look back warmly on that, and whenever I can drag anybody to sit in front of my viewing screen and who hasn't seen it, I haul it out because I'm quite proud of it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes?
Hello, sir. I recently saw your RSC production of Hamlet, which was brilliant because most of us know and love you as this just and moral and virtuous character. And yet in Hamlet you played one of the most famous villains in history. I wondered if you could tell us about that experience, because it was just fantastic to watch.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, yes, it's true. Jean-Luc Picard and Charles Xavier are, and will probably be for the rest of my life, the characters for which I'm most well known, and indeed they are upright, just, honest men. But I have played a lot of bad guys in my time. I was once first choice bad guy for the Royal Shakespeare Company. And,
well, you're very good at it.
yeah, well that kind of makes you wonder where it all comes from. Claudius was an interesting thing for me. I had never played Hamlet. I was never a Hamlet in my life. I could play Hamlet now. I'm ready to play Hamlet now, but it's unlikely that I will ever get cast. But I was in a very famous production of it in 1966 with the Royal Shakespeare Company, when a brilliant actor, who indeed made quite an impact in a couple of episodes of Star Trek, David Warner, he played Hamlet, and I saw a brilliant actor called Brewster Mason play Claudius, and it became my ambition then to play that role. I played it on television with Derek Jacobi, and it might be interesting for you if you can find, and it's indeed easily available, a DVD of Derek Jacobi's Hamlet to compare the two Claudiuses. And Jacobi is a wonderful Hamlet too. But I never got to do it on stage, and I used to, whenever I heard there was a production of Hamlet coming up, I would pitch myself to the director. And for a variety of reasons, I continually got turned down. The very last time I was turned down, I was told, "I'm sorry, but you're too old to play." Anyway, I heard that David Tennant was going to do it. Wonderful man and terrific actor, and I happen to know the director really well, and I begged him to let me have a go at playing Claudius, and then we did it in Stratford in London, and it was very successful, and then we filmed it, which was the, you know, the icing on the cake. But yes, playing really, really bad. You know, the thing about Claudius is he's not a really bad guy, he got one thing wrong. Now, it was a big thing, he killed his brother, and that's... but in every other respect, you know, he was a far better king than the other king would have been. I'm sure a far better husband too, a far better stepfather if Hamlet would have let him be. And but he did one horrible thing, and his life is blighted and damned because of it.